Hi everyone and welcome back to the channel. Thanks for pressing play once again. I'm Pixel Paul. If you're not already subscribed to the channel, if you can hit that subscribe button, that would be very much appreciated. So we're back this time around for another 10 for a tenner video. If you've not seen any of my videos on this before, essentially what I do is I'll pick a console and I will show you 10 games that you can pick up for that console for just £10. So as I always say, these are based on current CEX prices, and current being February 2024. So sometimes these prices go up, sometimes these prices go down. Now with this console that we're going to be looking at today, the prices have in the last probably year, maybe 2 years maybe, the prices for this console have gone up quite a bit actually in some cases. So when I was thinking about doing this 10 for a tenner for this PlayStation 3 video, I was a little bit worried that I might not be able to find 10 decent games for it, because like I say, when you're doing 10 for a tenner, you are generally looking for games that are just clocking in at £1. So I was a bit worried that I might not be able to find 10 games that were worthy of sort of starting a PlayStation 3 collection. But I think I've done pretty well. I have cheated a little bit with one game possibly. Is it a cheat? I'm not sure. I'll let you make your mind up on that one, but we'll come to that toward the end of the video. But in general, yeah, I found 10 pretty decent PlayStation 3 games, and we will have a look at those in a minute. So yeah, for me, PlayStation 3 is a console that I've really enjoyed playing and collecting for over the last sort of 2 years. I was very much, during that gen, an Xbox 360 player. So I played a huge amount of games across that generation on the 360. I did own a PlayStation 3 just for a little bit, towards the end of its sort of lifespan, mainly to play a certain series of games, which I'll come to in a minute. But I did play a few other games on there, like Metal Gear Solid 4 as well. But it was one series which I mainly sort of wanted to play that I couldn't play on the Xbox 360. And that was the reason why I bought a PS3. But I ended up selling the PlayStation 3 to sort of fund my purchase of a PlayStation 4 back in the day. So yeah, like I say, I didn't particularly buy a huge amount of PlayStation 3 games, and that's why I really, probably of all the consoles I collect for at the moment, that's the one I've really enjoyed picking up games for, especially when you're trying to find them at a decent price as well. It's that added challenge of trying to find them quite cheap. But yeah, the PlayStation 3, do love it. It's a great console, some amazing games across that generation, and there are some amazing first party sort of titles on the PlayStation 3 as well. So before I get into the games, just to warn you, I've had quite a bad cough all over the week. So my voice does sound a little bit rough perhaps, not quite as bad as it did on Friday when I sounded like Barry White. So if my voice does go a little bit, or I do need to cough, I do apologise for that. I'll take my usual swig of tea before we start. Oh, gorgeous. Right, and we'll get on to the first of the 10 games. So, the first one I've picked, like I said before, there was a certain series of games that obviously I couldn't play on the 360, and I really wanted to be able to play at some point. So that was the main reason for me buying a PlayStation 3, sort of like I say, towards the end of its lifespan, if you like. By the time I bought it, this game had come out, so there had been 3 games available for that series, so I was able to play all 3 of them. Now I've picked this one because it clocks in for £1, so to keep me in that 10 for 10 budget, yeah, it's only £1. What I would say is, obviously, if you want to play this game, you are better playing the other 2, but it's not essential. And that game is, of course, Uncharted 3, Drake's Deception. So yeah, the Uncharted series has become one of my favourite gaming series ever. I love Tomb Raider, I love Lara Croft and Tomb Raider, but Uncharted is sort of it's not hugely different to Tomb Raider, so that's why I think Uncharted sort of really sort of spoke to me. There was nothing particularly like Uncharted other than Tomb Raider sort of available on the Xbox 360 at the time. So that's what really prompted me to get in the PlayStation 3. Uncharted 3 then. So I guess a lot of people sort of view Uncharted 3 as being possibly the weaker of the original trilogy, and probably of the 4 as well, or 5 if you include Lost Legacy. I think it's a bit harsh. I personally think the first Uncharted is possibly the weakest of the lot. I think they had a great sort of set of characters and story there. But the actual sort of gameplay was still just slightly lacking something on the first Uncharted, and then they perfected it for Uncharted 2, which is undoubtedly probably the best of the entire series. But yeah, Uncharted 3, for me, story-wise, I think it's up there, because it very much sort of centres around that relationship between Nate and Sully. It's very much between those two. Obviously, there's other characters involved as well. Chloe Fraser returns from the second Uncharted game. She makes an appearance in Uncharted 3. But yeah, the sort of story is very much centred around the relationship between Nate and Sully. You can even see sort of the origins of how they meet in I think it's the second chapter of the game, where you play as the young Nathan Drake, and you meet Victor Sullivan. So yeah, I think for me that's why I really like Uncharted 3, just because they are the best two characters really. So yeah, for £1, Uncharted 3 I think's a pretty decent start for your 10 for a tenner. Okay, so moving on. So again, you are sort of restricted a little bit when you're only buying games for £1 from CEX. But in general, a lot of these come from sort of gaming series, and a lot of the games in those game series, because I don't know if it's because they come from the big name sort of series and they were mass produced, so they're not as sort of niche or rare. So you do tend to find that a lot of the big name games can end up being really, really cheap, and this one is no different. And it is Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2. So again, I've gone for the second one because Call of Duty 1 I think is a little bit more pricey. I think it's either £1.50 or £2 possibly. This again is £1, and I just think it's better than Modern Warfare 3. A lot of the other Call of Duty games are actually about £1 as well. I know Call of Duty Ghosts is £1. I think World at War, which is one of the best Call of Duty games, is about £1.50 I think. But yeah, for me, I mean, I've always liked Modern Warfare 2. I thought of the sort of original Warfare trilogy. For me, it was my favourite. Certainly in terms of the campaign, I've never been a big multiplayer, online multiplayer sort of fan, so it's always been about the campaigns for me. And I always really enjoyed Modern Warfare 2. So that's why I've included it in 10 for a tenner. So that's number 2. My voice is starting to go already, so another reset with a bit of cup of tea. Okay, so the third game is, you could argue it's not the same game, but it's very similar, and it came out around the same time, and it is Battlefield Bad Company 2. So I think they did come out roughly around the same time. Obviously there was a lot of comparisons drawn between the two. Some people prefer Modern Warfare 2, some people prefer Bad Company 2. And I think it's quite close between which is the better game. And again, I'm just looking at it from sort of campaign perspective. And I would just about give the nod possibly to Modern Warfare 2, but only just, because Bad Company 2 is excellent. It's a really good solo sort of campaign. Again, only clocks in for £1. No, you can't see much of that really, but yeah, clocks in for £1. It was a really good sequel to the first Battlefield Bad Company, and yeah, for £1, can't go wrong. So yeah, another shooter. Now, when I do these 10 for a tenners, I always do it from the perspective of it's for somebody who's possibly just bought a PlayStation 3 and just starting the collection. So I try to put a little bit of variety in, and that has been difficult with the number of games that are sort of available in that really low budget bracket. But yeah, I would class this one as being something a little bit different possibly, and that is Hitman Absolution. Now, I'm not a massive fan of the Hitman games personally. I'm not a huge fan of stealth games, if I'm honest. I just don't have the patience for them. I just like to go in and all guns blazing. So yeah, the Hitman games are never ones that I easily pick up and play. But as far as I'm aware, Hitman Absolution is one of the best Hitman games. I think Blood Money is a lot of people's favourite as well. But as far as I know, Hitman Absolution is also up there as one of the best. And at £1, you can't go wrong. So it's a great cover as well. I do love the cover for this, that deep red and black of Agent 47? I think it is, isn't it? But yeah, Hitman Absolution. Again, just £1. Now, this one is one that I do know very well because yeah, I played it originally on the Xbox 360 and it became certainly one of my favourite games from that generation, and it has continued to be sort of like one of my favourite games ever, I think. I just think it's an excellent game, excellent sci-fi shooter, comes from an excellent series, but for me, this just kind of brought it to a whole new level. Now, I only actually have sort of like a special edition copy of this, but the bog standard version of this game is only £1. But obviously this version is a little bit more pricey, but I don't have the bog standard version of it, so I can only show you the version I've got, and that is Deus Ex Human Revolution. Now, if you've never played this, yeah, I just fully recommend giving it a go, because if you like sci-fi, yeah, it just doesn't get huge. It doesn't get much better, really. The sequel was really disappointing. I wasn't a big fan of the sequel, but if you just treat it as a standalone game on its own, Human Revolution, for me, was just superb. Again, I am someone who, if I'm playing a first-person shooter, I am kind of a bit gung-ho, run and gun type on these games, and Deus Ex is a little bit more sort of a thinking man's first-person shooter. There's stealth elements in there. There's a huge amount of sort of augmentations that the main character can have as well, which you can use to sort of get yourself around certain situations. So it is quite in-depth. There's quite a lot to it. But at no point when I was playing it did I ever sort of feel massively overwhelmed or confused by what to actually do. So there is a degree of sort of it being like a decent entry level into this type of game, I'd say. But yeah, I mean, the main thing from this, from my perspective, has always been the score. The score for this game is just incredible. An absolutely amazing soundtrack to it, which is the reason why I bought this version of it, actually, because it does have the soundtrack included. But yeah, graphically, absolutely stunning. And yeah, I just think it's one of the, I don't want to say one of the greatest games ever, but it probably is, for me, one of the greatest games ever. But it's surprising how few people, when you show them this game, say they've actually ever played it. So it's kind of sad in a way, but yeah, if you're watching this and you've never played it, I thoroughly recommend it. So yeah, Deus Ex Human Revolution, bog standard version, clocks in at £1. So another game which, again, when I didn't have the PlayStation 3, I'd had a PlayStation 2 prior to that, but just jumped to Xbox 360 at that point. So a game that I'd played on PlayStation 2 and really loved, really enjoyed, was Killzone. So this was another one of those games that sort of prompted me to get PlayStation 3 for a little bit, and that is Killzone 2. So again, I've got the collector's edition steelbook version of this. I'm not sure if this is £1 or not. I know certainly the bog standard version of it is £1, but at the moment CEX are doing some strange things with sort of steelbooks. Some of the steelbooks have been priced up. Some of them still match the bog standard version prices, but some of them are sort of matching or are being sort of priced up a lot more. So yeah, bog standard version of this is £1, but yeah, Killzone 2, excellent first person shooter. Like I say, I really enjoyed Killzone 1. For all its sort of limitations at the time, it was not quite the Halo beta that it was kind of being touted as, but it just had something. And this probably just improved on it in every way, but only sort of like a gradual improvement. I think it wasn't until you got to Killzone 3 where the sort of tech for PlayStation 3 was properly being used and developers were starting to use it a bit more and getting the most out of it. So Killzone 2 is a leap forward from Killzone 1, but possibly not in all areas. So, excuse me, the graphics are still quite sort of grubby and green and grey, but yeah, the controls still feel a little bit clunky. But all in all, it's still a really decent first-person shooter. And if you like the other Killzone games, then yeah, you'll want to play this as well. So Killzone, again, bog standard version, definitely clocks in at the moment for just £1. I am going to have another quick swig of tea. So, speaking of sequels, I think this next game is one of the best sequels ever made. So, a bit like I was sort of saying before with Uncharted, where they created a game which had all these sort of elements there to be great, but it was just missing that certain something. And that's how I sort of view Uncharted, and then the jump to Uncharted 2. And for me, this is similar to this game as well, and that is Assassin's Creed 2. So, like I say, I think they had the basis of an amazing game in Assassin's Creed. It just wasn't that interesting. But then when Assassin's Creed 2 came out, everything was just almost like they'd listened to the fans of the first game, and they just improved on the storyline, the sort of game mechanics. There was more to do in the game, and yeah, it's just, I think, one of the best sequels ever made, Assassin's Creed 2. Again, an amazing score in this. Graphically, it's beautiful, and just a really amazing sort of adventure stealth game, which I don't like, but for some reason Assassin's Creed 2 just drew me in, and I played this game to death. One of the few games I've actually sort of platinumed as well, or I don't know if I platinumed it or whether I got a 100% on Xbox 360, one of them anyway. So yeah, Assassin's Creed 2, £1, can't complain. Okay, game number 8, and yeah, again, for a little bit of variety, I've gone with Heavy Rain. So again, a bit of a cult classic. This one comes from the Quantic Dream team, who also developed, well, they started with Nomad Soul, I think it was called, then did Fahrenheit on the PlayStation 2, went on to do Beyond Two Souls and Detroit Become Human. But if you ask a lot of people which of those games is their favourite, a lot of people do say Heavy Rain, and it's not hard to see why. It's a fantastic game, very much a kind of along the same lines as the rest of those games in that series. Very cinematic, very story driven, all sort of choices to be made to sort of drive the story in different directions. If you've ever seen films like Seven or Kiss the Girls, those sort of murder mystery kind of dark games, yeah, Heavy Rain's very much like that, and yeah, thoroughly recommended. And at just £1, that's a ridiculous price for a game like this, but yeah, it's an absolute bargain for £1. So yeah, another one to add to the 10 for a tenner. So we move on to what I would sort of consider maybe the slight cheat with this one. So what I wanted to do was just, like I say, sort of bring a bit of variety to the 10. And as I've said, all of those games so far have been £1 each. There wasn't a huge amount of it, or there isn't a huge amount available at the moment for the PlayStation 3 that clocks in at just 50p, because I did want to get one £1.50 game into this 10. So I had to find a 50p game, and there's not a huge amount of choice on the PlayStation 3 in CEX at the moment. That's not to say you couldn't go to a charity shop, maybe not a charity shop, possibly car boot sales and eBay maybe, and you might be able to get some games for a lot less than that, possibly. So I wanted to just grab a 50p game out of that lot, and like I say, the choice of 50p games is pretty slim, and you are pretty much limited to Pro Evolution, FIFA, and a few golf games. There are literally only about 20 titles, I think, maybe not even that, which are priced at 50p for the PlayStation 3. So I've gone for a FIFA game, and I've gone for FIFA 14, basically because I had it. I just found it the other day. So yeah, FIFA 14, for a bit of variety, if nothing else. You know, a sports game into your first 10 games for your PlayStation. So yeah, FIFA 14 I've included. And in all fairness, FIFA 14 was a very decent entry into the series. So yeah, just to keep under that £10 budget, I've thrown that in for 50p, FIFA 14, with Messi and Gareth Bale on the front. The PlayStation 2 version of this goes for a lot more. It's quite high valued at the moment because I think it was the last FIFA game available on the PlayStation 2. So if you ever see FIFA 14 on PlayStation 2 out and about in charity shops and you can get it dirt cheap, it could be worth picking up because I think the trading value is pretty decent for it. So quick tip there. But yeah, number 9 in the 10 for a tenner is FIFA 14. I'm sorry, I do feel like I've cheated you there a little bit, but it's worth it. It was worth it to get one £1.50 game. Now, when you look through the number of games and the quality of the games that you can get for £1.50, it's mind-boggling, some of the titles that are in there. Off the top of my head, I know for a fact that Mass Effect 2 is in there, which is my favourite game of all time. And I was very tempted to include that in this 10 for a tenner. But, like I said, I wanted to keep it a little bit of variety in there and also possibly introduce people to a game that maybe they're not expecting to see in like a top 10 kind of countdown type video. And I know for a fact there's quite a lot of people who haven't played this game, maybe aren't aware of it, but it is a banger. It's an absolute belting game. And it is Vanquish by Sega on the PlayStation 3. So yeah, this clocks in at £1.50. If you've not played Vanquish, it's a sci-fi shooter, sci-fi third-person shooter, and it's crazy. It's mental. It plays very much like a sort of arcade shooter in some degree, some ways. But if you imagine, if you imagine, say, Sonic the Hedgehog being in Gears of War, that is what you're getting with Vanquish. It's utterly mental. But massive fun. It's loud, it's fast paced, it's very cliched, it's very sort of you know, your typical kind of sci-fi shooter with a generic main character, if you like, but yeah, it's stunning to look at. It has that very sort of Sega-like arcade style visuals to it as well, and yeah, I just love Vanquish. I just think it's such a great game. It did get good reviews when it originally came out, but for some reason it was just a little bit overlooked, and we've never had a sequel to it, which is a shame. I'd love to maybe play it a little bit more, but yeah, it's just a great game, really worth picking up. Like I say, this is £1.50. You can get this with a 3D lenticular cardboard sleeve. I'm not sure again if that would be a little bit more expensive than £1.50. I suspect not, so it's worth keeping your eye out for that. I think I have that on Xbox 360, not to hand, but it is a really nice cover, the lenticular cover for this. So yeah, if you see Vanquish, £1.50, definitely worth picking up. So that is your 10 for a tenner. My voice has just about held on. I am struggling a little bit now. Let me get the 10. So yeah, if you've got a brand new, well, not brand new, but you've just picked up a PlayStation 3 for the first time and you've got £10 to spend on games, that to me is not a bad little stack to get you started. 10 for a tenner. Bang on budget as well. So, thank you very much for watching that. Hope you enjoyed it. If you've got any comments about those games, if you you know, if you think there's games out there for £1 that you would include in the 10 instead of some of those, you know, you can check the CEX app, have a look at the £1 games that are in the PlayStation 3, see if there's any that you think should go in there and replace some of those perhaps. You'll struggle with the 50p ones though, I promise you. But yeah, I hope you've enjoyed that. Like I said before, if you've not already subscribed to the channel, if you can hit the subscription button, give the video a thumbs up, And thanks for watching, and I will see you on the next one. Bye guys.